Hello, Lisa Didkowski, Global Fertility Business Intelligence Certified Financial Planner. I'm going to read a lot of this broadcast breaking news because I don't want to leave anything out. But thank you, Joe Severino, candidate for Congress, 10th Congressional District, Illinois, Lake County, against Brad Schneider, Democrat. If it was not for your press release about approximately 5 days ago, outing the Leadership Institute and the corruption with a man I just learned about, Collin Corbett of Core Strategies, a young man, a millennial, about 34 years old, who I guess never went to college, just as a high school graduate, who was somehow recruited to do political pundency. He's a pundit, and he does campaign training. He trains candidates to lose for more than a decade. He's represented candidates, and his business partners are the biggest losers in the political field. And now he's coming to your turf in Lake County with his sugar daddy, Keith Brin, because his lawyer, who's been the corporate agent on his corporation for more than a decade, pays him from the political campaign fund of Keith Brin, even though Keith Brin is not running for anything. For about 3 years, he's been paying all these consistent payments to Collin Corbett. So why is Collin's lawyer, who services him, paying Collin Corbett? That seems improper. So thank you for that wonderful, enlightening press release, which drew a lot of attention to this Leadership Institute not-for-profit, 501(c) not-for-profit in Alexandria, Virginia, run by Morton Blackwell, who rose to prominence in the Young Republican Party, Young Communist Party, the way the rhinos do it, in 1965 in D.C., Virginia. So Morton Blackwell's 83 years old now, and he's been running the Leadership Institute for quite some time, since the 70s, the 1970s. So we're going to start with the breaking news that the director of the Leadership Institute's founder of the political party, the Democratic Union political party in Chile, South America, was assassinated in the 90s. So the co-founder of the Leadership Institute director's partner that co-founded a major political party in South America and Chile was assassinated. This is breaking news, very relevant, because a 4-hour plane ride just south on the western coast of South America, you can go from Ecuador to Chile. And on August 11th, the presidential candidate in Ecuador was assassinated for calling it a narco state, run by drug lords and corruption and crime. So Fernando Alcibiades Villavicencio Valencia. A lot of the South Americans have 4 names, but we'll just call him Fernando Villavicencio. Born 1963 in Ecuador, member of the National Assembly of Ecuador 2021 to 2023, was assassinated on August 9th, 2023. He had 5 children with Veronica Soares, a founder of the Pachakutik Party, 1995. He wrote for El Universo conservative funding. Villavicencio listed as one of 3 authors, claiming Trump's former campaign manager Paul Manafort had met Julian Assange in the Ecuadorian embassy. And Paul Manafort took a loan from a Chicago and Lake County, Illinois bank, and it seemed legitimate, but of course the deep state DOJ found him guilty, or found the bank guilty, of lending one of Trump's campaign advisors a $16 million loan. So that was in The Guardian, that author that the assassinated presidential candidate in Ecuador, was listed as an author on that article about Paul Manafort and Julian Assange and Trump. Chicago and Lake County Bank gave the $16 million in loans. You know what? I'm going to skip over this. So they tried to jail him for libel, and then he hid in the Amazon and fled to Peru. So for many years, he was able to hide in the Amazon and flee to Peru. And he ran, and he was only at about a 7 or 8% approval rating. You know, he wasn't in the lead, and this was early on in the race, but they assassinated him. So let's get into the Leadership Institute. Morton Blackwell, who rose to young Republican, young communist rhino fame in 1965, right after Kennedy was assassinated in, I think, November 1963. He's 83 years old now, and he's had this post at Leadership Institute, Alexandria, Virginia, for a long time. So he trained almost 300,000 students. He gets revenue of almost $40 million a year. He has a full-time staff of 145, but I think it should be called the Young Communists Institute. Collin Corbett. Looks like a cross between, this is Morton Blackwell, Orville Redenbacher and Colonel Sanders. And in his youth, he looked more like a descendant of Mitch McConnell. Barely a distinction between his neck and his chin, that same sort of amorphous face of Mitch McConnell. So Morton Blackwell is a strange bird, looks like the popcorn man and the fried chicken man. And he's 83 years old, and he's still running the Leadership Institute. 5013C public charity, employer identification number 51-0235174. Total revenue 2021, $31 million. Total giving only $300,000. That's almost $100,000 less than Morton Blackwell pays himself. So he only gives 75% of what he gives himself to the whole world. What a generous guy. The Leadership Institute's mission is to increase the effectiveness of conservative activists and leaders in the public policy process and educate people for successful participation in government, politics, and media. They have independent contractors in 2021, Exponential Consulting LLC and Next After LLC. 2021, guess who their biggest grant went to? None other than Turning Point USA. Charlie Kirk. Do you know about that? Do you know, are you friends with Morton Blackwell? You must be, Charlie Kirk. How about, well, I'll save this for later, but how about the South American gentleman whose partner in founding the political party was assassinated? The leadership director in the USA, and he runs the branch of the Leadership Institute in Chile. His partner was assassinated. So Turning Point USA is their biggest grantee for many years. And Turning Point USA was infiltrated last year in Illinois and Chicago by Rabine Delmar, Gary Rabine and Aaron Delmar, and Matt Podgorski and Amy Kessem. Amy Kessem is a Chicago police officer. Matt Podgorski is in charge of the Northwest GOP on the north side of Chicago. But Gary Rabine went to Florida. He's long gone. Total rhino. Aaron Delmar is a Democrat who runs as a Republican and controls a lot of Palatine and owns gaming companies and slot machines all over Illinois. So he has all these gaming contracts in Illinois. Had secret ads in the Lincoln Day dinner where Marsha Blackburn spoke last year and didn't say that it was his ads, his company's, Pritzker pet, Aaron Delmar. But I like Aaron. He's a nice guy. Very nice guy, but he is a Pritzker pet. Anyway, corruption in Lyons Township High School with Turning Point USA, and grown man Gary Rabine Rhino and Aaron Del Mar was going to the high school with the kids. But Lyons Township was smart. They didn't let Gary Rabine and Aaron Del Mar put Turning Point USA with Leslie Mendoza, who's now an adult going to University of Illinois. They didn't let this girl have these grown men putting communism in the high school. And Taft High School downtown in the city, that's where Matt Podgorski and Amy Kessam were trying to put Turning Point USA, in Taft High School. I don't think that happened either, despite Amy's clout as a police officer under Pritzker. Lyons Township was tied to the communist land deal, and so that was all about taking land attached to Lyons Township High School and offshoring it to communists. And I think that's still an ongoing dispute. And $200,000 approximately in communism scholarships was given out in 2021 by the Leadership Institute. That's about half of Morton Blackwell's salary. So he's not generous at all. He takes for himself. He doesn't even give. So the smoking gun is that this is the smoking gun. Get ready. This is like the big smoking gun. And again, thank you, Joe Severino, for your team's wonderful press release alerting me to the Leadership Institute, although I had heard of them last year. But these Keith Brin, Collin Corbett core strategies, I never heard of all these people. So that was a very, very well done, enlightening, newsworthy press release. And it led me to look up the tax returns of the Leadership Institute and business transactions involving interested persons. Dario Paya, director, $192,000. Who's Dario Paya? Why is somebody getting such a big salary as a random director? And he's the president to conduct training. And I'll skip over their disregarded entities and their tax-related entities. So in 2020, the biggest giving was to Turning Point USA, but they only gave $61,000 in scholarships. Again, 10-15% of Morton Blackwell's salary. All the leadership directors are men. I counted 10 of them. There could be more, but I counted 10 of them, and they're all men. Dario Paya was a director in 2020 and only worked for 1 hour, it said, and the board of directors in 2020. But he ran the whole Leadership Institute in Chile, South America. 2018, more spending on educational seminars in the Caribbean and Central America, East Asia, Asia Pacific, Burma, Cambodia. Oh, look at what happened in Myanmar. I think their government had an upheaval after 2020 fraudulent elections. But Cambodia, Middle East, North Africa, Algeria, Bahrain, Egypt, a bunch of countries that I don't want to, Brunei, that I don't want to pronounce wrong. www.leadershipinstitute.org. Training conservatives since 1979. Installing fascist and communist regimes around the world since 1979. Activism On Demand section of their website is where every school, probably in the world or the markets to which they're interested in installing governments, has a unique identifier and ID. Every school that Turning Point USA and the Leadership Institute want to infiltrate or indoctrinate has a unique ID on the Activism On Demand section of the Leadership Institute website. So there's a student in Chile, Max Rubio, whose school ID is 28253. He won a 3-week trip from Chile to Washington, D.C. So just like Turning Point USA infiltrates USA schools, Their big benefactor, the Leadership Institute, does too. Joe Dubose, who was Darren Bailey's young media director last year of his campaign, Darren Bailey for governor, now Darren Bailey running for 12th congressional district against Mike Bost, who is bought. Bost is bought deep state rhino since 1979 when he joined the Marines and was indoctrinated. Actually, that's the same year the Leadership Institute started, is the year that Mike Bost in the 12th congressional district since 2015 started in the Marines 1979 to 1982. That's interesting. But Joe Dubose was appointed to Bailey to be his media director. And he's the co-founder of Tactical Campaigns, and he's with the Leadership Institute. And his only tactical effort was to make Bailey lose. He was a dirty, dirty operative and quite evil. And, you know, me as being a journalist in media, just by training and one of my innate skills and what I've worked professionally in my life as, I reached out to him early last year and many times last year, and he would avoid me and not respond. And from other media, I heard in Northern Illinois, he was completely non-responsive, trying to keep Darren Bailey, out of Northern Illinois. So very bad actor. So part of my long, many emails to Joe Dubose last year, wake up. The Leadership Institute is most active on college campuses, raising young Black Lives Matters, pro-rioting, pro-radical abortions, critical race theory, pro-vaccine, pro-socialist, Marxist, compliant, multi-indoctrinated youth. The Leadership Institute and Turning Point USA are communist groomers. The Leadership Institute poses as a nonpartisan, but again, wake up. It is the exact DC, Virginia-based model that George Soros and Open Societies Foundation used for decades to control state and local government in the USA, i.e. the governor's projects, the Secretary of State projects. Where do you think Stacey Abrams, Newsom, Raffensperger, Whitmer, Benson, that's Gretchen Whitmer, Jocelyn Benson, AOC, and the squad, Bernie Sanders, etc., came from? Globalists that launder money and power through not-for-profits. I want to repeat that. Globalists who launder money and power through not-for-profits. I told Joe Dubose, Bailey's media expert, last year, your post of J.B. Pritzker's racist Ebonics video parroting the racist Biden "You Ain't Black" ad was intentionally meant to publicize J.B. Pritzker on Darren's page and have blacks be led to Pritzker on Darren's page. You are an idiot, Joe Dubose. I love how all these articles about you say you have been working on campaigns since you were 11, yet when you ran one, it bombed, and you didn't even know how to do media. And somehow you are running media for a man with the potential to be POTUS, President of the United States of America. I think you work for a questionable globalist Washington, D.C. not-for-profit, which should be thoroughly investigated for campaign interference, espionage, subterfuge, and treason. Joe Dubose, he ran for national delegate, Congressional District 3. I think that's what CD3 stands for. And I think he got it for the convention in 2020, the Republican National Convention. And he did a video to run for that where he joked about, this isn't my family, I just borrowed this family. And he stands next to a cardboard Trump cutout and brags about getting it for $39.95, but says, I helped him with his campaign. What? By buying a $39 cutout, Joe Dubose? So unfortunately, the Bailey campaign trusted that because this was a big Washington, D.C., Virginia not-for-profit, that they actually were legitimate conservatives or Republicans or had Bailey's campaign's best interests at heart. That wasn't true. They had a jokester who was joking about being for Trump because he could afford a $39 cutout cardboard of Trump. So from InfluenceWatch.com, the Leadership Institute provides training for conservative activists on topics that include the history of the Constitution, the foundations of conservatism, conservative podcasting, and how to become a pundit, and Campaign Academy. So they trained Collin Corbett on how to be a pundit. And then he's about 5 other pundits who don't know how to be pundits. And Collin kind of knows how to pretend to be a pundit. So that's really interesting. He got his training with only a high school education from Morton Blackwell and one of the political leaders of South America. So like a foreign government, which should be against the rules to collude with foreign governments in Lake County elections with Keith Brin, but I'm sure that's on the chopping block because Joe's press release probably alerted a lot of press around the world to what's going on at the Leadership Institute. Leadership Institute does not disclose donors. I read this at Influence Watch. But past tax filings show 6.1 million from Greater Horizons. Have not looked into them yet. And then they list a charitable fund, and then they list the Charles Koch, is that Cook, or how do you pronounce that? I know they're billionaires, but foundation. Dario Paya is the president of Leadership Institute Chile and the co-founder and Secretary General of UDI, the Independent Democratic Union in Chile, South America, a center-right political party, i.e. liberal rhinos, analogous to the Leadership Institute here, liberal rhinos, or conservative rhinos, whatever you want to say. March 28th, 2017, Chile's Max Rubio, the student, won 3 weeks of a trip to Washington, D.C. And he said he learned how to win elections from the Leadership Institute. So we're training South America on how to win their elections, but really we're just training South America on how to get their leaders assassinated, apparently. August 9th, Ecuador. And founder of UDI, Jaime Guzman, a civilian allied with Augusto Pinochet, this is from Wiki, Dario Guillermo Paya Mira. So actually, Dario Paya's name is Dario Guillermo Paya Mira, born 1964, has 4 sons, and his wife is an economist, again, who I haven't looked up yet because this is a lot of research needs to be done, Bettina Horst von Thaden. So she's an economist. And the plot thickens because Dario Guillermo Paya Mira, who's co-founder of the political party in Chile, got assassinated. So Leadership Institute's, one of their founder of the Leadership Institute, one of their directors, co-founder of the political party in Chile, got assassinated. And Collin Corbett doesn't think that's relevant to mention in any of his podcasts or to say the history of who's funding him, has a history of getting people assassinated. American Field Service Scholarship was given to Dario Paya. That is issued by the State Department, AFSUSA.org. AFSUSA.org. So this young man, Dario Paya, who teamed up with Morton Blackwell on the South American side, got a United States State Department scholarship to go to Lock Raven High School in Baltimore, USA. So the deep state, following the assassination of JFK, started sending foreign students and foreign governments to high school here, sponsored care of the United States government, the State Department, to teach them how to win elections in their countries to further this globalist one world government, which started a long, long time ago. And Dario went to Catholic University. He was an assistant professor to a professor who was Jaime Guzman Errazuriz, and that was the co-founder of the UDI party. So his professor at Catholic University ended up founding a political party of the government of Chile with him and getting assassinated. After law school, Dario went to Japan, Spain, and the United States. Keep in mind, he was trained by the State Department. United States State Department trained him as seemingly a lawyer and an intelligence agent to go around the world, furthering the governmental goals of that the United States had for Chile and for the United States. 1990, he formed IYL and gave legal advice to the parliament. 1992, he joined the Leadership Institute. This is Dario Paya, USA. He's now director in the USA and executive president, like the head guy of the Leadership Institute Foundation in Chile, so the analogous sister organization in South America. Again, why is our Lake County government, actually, why is the whole United States being hijacked by Chilean government operatives, and South American government operatives are being assassinated right now, and they're trying to control elections in the United States? I think we're going to see after Joe Severino's press release, and I'm surely not the only person looking into Joe Severino's press release, I'm sure we're going to see all these candidate training institutes all over the United States and webinars on Leadership Institute website be shut down once they learn the ties to South America and the assassinations and Dario Paya and his State Department upbringing. So Dario Paya is co-founder of UDI, and his co-founder was assassinated in 1991, specifically Jaime Jorge Guzman Errazuriz, 1946 to 1991. By the way, this is only on Wiki in Spanish, so you have to go to Google Translate to actually, if you're not fluent in Spanish, to read it. So most people would have to do a little extra research to find this information, but it's totally public. AFS scholarships for active global citizens, so that's American Field Service scholarships by the United States State Department scholarships, are advertised as for active global citizens who want to solve the problems of the world. Oh my gosh, is the Leadership Institute and Collin Corbett and Morton Blackwell and Turning Point USA, are they solving the problems of the world? Or are they trying to cause overthrow of the United States government, which carries with it penalties like treason and sedition and conspiracy to overthrow United States government? We have to think about that. Again, I want to repeat this. American Field Service scholarships that collaborate with the Leadership Institute are handed out by the State Department, afsusa.org. They're advertised as for active global citizens who want to solve the problems of the world. Is acting in a treasonous, seditious way to overthrow United States government solving the problems of the world, or are you destroying the world? So American Field Service needs to be looked into. The Leadership Institute needs to be looked into. Morton Blackwell, Collin Corbett, Core Strategies, Dario Paya. This is really terrifying that they want to come to Cook County, Chicago, Lake County, Northern Illinois, and they want to control elections here and hurt good conservative Republican candidates. So Ecuador is a 4-hour flight down the western coast of South America to Chile, like a Chicago flight to California, similar. Francisco Villavicencio was just assassinated on August 9th, I believe, 2023 in Ecuador. He was running for president. So note to Collin Corbett of Core Strategies, long 9 studios and smoke-filled room, your silly little podcast. You said corruption in Illinois will be the news of this year and next year's election cycle. No, it won't. You're totally corrupt with South American regimes and governments at the Leadership Institute. We don't have any corruption in Illinois that hasn't been outed last year. It's all on the table now. We all know the corruption in Northern Illinois. It's the rhinos like you, Collin Corbett. You're the corruption in Northern Illinois. So you doing a podcast 2 days ago saying corruption in Illinois will be the news, that means, Collin Corbett, you're going to be the news. Morton Blackwell's going to be the news. Dario Paya is going to be the news. The assassination in South America is going to be the news, and the tie it has to the Leadership Institute. I should say plural, assassinations, because Dario's partner was assassinated too. Actually, Collin, we got that under control last year. With the taking down of the Irvin slate, the Democrats are all behaving because they want to continue to enjoy the freest life in the world that the United States of America offers. So our corruption is under control. Corruption is about globalists living among us in the United States of America and inserting themselves into American elections. Collin talks about Illinois Republicans and how they suck. This is 2 days ago. And he calls his own show stupid. And of the 5 people on his show, 2 of them walked off and had to leave, and 1 didn't even show up. So he was supposed to have 6 people on his podcast, Smoke-Filled Room, and 1 didn't show up, and 2 just walked off during the show. And he was very nervous. He usually smokes a cigar, which is filling him with cancer, cells. So, yeah, hopefully he'll smoke a lot more cigars, and we can do freeze frames, 30 frames a second in video of, possibly thousands of cancer cells flooding his body. But he wasn't smoking the other day. He was just sucking on his knuckles and putting them up to his mouth constantly because he was very nervous. I think Joe's press release made him nervous. He didn't mention Joe. He mentioned all the races and all the districts, but he didn't mention Joe. And he called his own show stupid and said when he goes on vacation and leaves it to one of his workers, it'll probably fall apart. And it's a stupid show anyway. So I think that's kind of letting us know that Smoke-Filled Room is going to choke to death on smoke pretty soon. Because anything he says is glossing over the fact that he's funded by people whose partners get assassinated and whose neighboring countries get assassinated. So Collin, you need a new job. But nobody should run against Joe Severino in the 10th because we have the perfect candidate. We have a JFK Jr. type candidate who is for everybody, who's for equality and freedom and prosperity and entrepreneurism and successful life for everybody. So Joe Severino is about the most perfect Republican we could ever have running for Congress in Lake County. And anyone who would want to run against him as a Republican is asking for problems, because the only reason anyone would want to run against such a perfect candidate is because they're dirty and they're part of some type of conspiracy to overthrow United States government. Because you don't run against somebody when they already showed last year what a strong candidate they are. And as for Darren Bailey, Collin Corbett, and his little pundits, they're all saying, oh, Mike Bost is going to have a fundraiser with McCarthy, Speaker of the House, supporting him. Well, Bost is part of the dirty machine. He's in Southern Illinois since 2015. It's 2023, going on 2024. He's going on 9 years where he's let American like Illinois companies, tons of them flee Illinois, and Illinois Manufacturers Association businesses go to China and keep offshoring manufacturing, aerospace, Department of Defense contracts. So he's had 9 years to prevent our companies from offshoring and our farmland from being systematically scooped up by China and migrants being sent here to work it during the months that it's workable, the lands. But I drove through all of Illinois and all the farmlands, and it looks like the Wizard of Oz. It's so many of those farms with the houses and a lot of the barns and farm buildings all blown down, blown over, dilapidated. And these communities don't even have the money to cart away the wreckage from the buildings that have just like crumbled, dilapidated. It's really sad what has happened to American farmland. But if you look at what's happening, the Phoenix, Arizona fires that just happened, if you look it up on a map, right within steps of that was Bayer Corporation. And Bayer Corporation is in business with Ginkgo Bioworks, which is in about 2020, they did an IPO with Bill Gates and with the globalists behind printing DNA, and they did a joint venture, Bayer and Ginkgo Bioworks, and created Joyn, Joyn, for genetically like modified everything. And so Bayer's big thing is to be able to make food without sun and without water, like just like kind of, how do you do that? Without farming. It's like they want to basically make food without farming. What does that mean? Like without sun, without water, without nature, without farming. Just like chemically, genetically modified foods. And so we've already seen that. You've seen the videos of people buying certain chicken from Walmart and it comes apart in white, gelatinous, stringy things that were somehow made to look like a chicken. And I've seen women on TikTok that, especially Black women, Jamaican women, are kind of trained to take the germs off. Their moms and their grandmothers train them to wash it with white vinegar. Is common in Jamaican cooking. You just wash the chicken with white vinegar. So I've seen videos of the women do this with chicken they've bought, especially at Walmart, and the chicken just degrades into synthetic sort of strands. And so there's a lot of weird stuff going on with food manufacturing, but we don't want to change farming. Ask Darren Bailey, he's a farmer. But interestingly enough, those big industrial fires in Phoenix, one of the targets was Bayer Corporation, which is in business with Bill Gates, Ginkgo Bioworks, and has the joint venture of Joyn, Joyn. So a lot going on in the United States of America, but nobody should run against Joe Severino. It should be Joe Severino versus Brad Schneider in a fair election this time. And nobody should be undermining Darren Bailey. He's the strongest Republican in the United States right now that's running at the congressional level on the Republican ticket that is not an incumbent. So he is. Nobody should be trying to run against Darren or undermine him when he's one of the most pro-America, just dyed in the wool, loyal, always going to support the foundations of our country and the Constitution. Why would anybody undermine somebody like Darren Bailey? It just doesn't make sense. Lisa Dudkowski, Global Fertility Business Intelligence, Certified Financial Planner, and delivering you this breaking news. What is going to happen with the Leadership Institute and what is going to happen with Core Strategies? Thank you very much.